All right, woo! I know it's been a long day, and I know you guys are working hard, and there's a lot of information to take in. So before we kind of go into the festivities of the evening and get into a different mode, because you're totally right, by the way, a lot of the sort of magic and networking and social alchemy that happens around trying to launch a startup happens when you're having fun, happens when you're, out and celebrating and connecting in a more informal way and not static in that structure. So we're gonna start with a little video that shows you a little bit of what Burning Man is like. So you could, we're having a little technicalities, but let's see. Got a big screen to look at. Can you play that video? Oh, not working. Oh, start this from the top, please. No, from the top in the video. Go down there. Yeah, there you go, just like that. So check this out. Full screen, please.
We arrived out at this vast plain. I took a stick and I drew a line on the ground. And I said, on the other side of this line, everything will be different. And everything has been different.
The place is an idea. That's so powerful and so alluring that people will go to the worst place in the world just to get a little taste of it.
It's very disconcerting in a 1 week period of time to realize that everything that you've done in your entire life could potentially be wrong.
Boom. So, why are we entrepreneurs? Where does it come from? What is that motivation? Some people are born entrepreneurs, other people are taught entrepreneurship. So this is one assumption of why we're entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurship is living a few years of your life like most people won't, so that you can spend the rest of your life like most people can't. And that definitely is a motivation for a lot of people to put in those die-hard hours, to sort of shoot the moon, to hope that we get lucky enough to exit and sort of live a different life in a different realm. And I want to challenge that today, because both from my personal experience as an entrepreneur and I think from where our society is at, it can be a little bit dangerous as an entrepreneur to approach it like you're in a casino and it's all about winning. There's other angles to it. So yes, it's great to be a rock star, but if you think about what a rock star is, they're up on stage and all their fans are watching them. There's a new model of peer-to-peer connection and community, and that's what we're starting to see emerge all over the world. So here's another idea of what entrepreneurship is. Rewarding ordinary people for making an extraordinary impact on the world. Value add. In this society, entrepreneurship is an ability to problem solve all these little different things about humanity that we have the ability to change as we create a bigger system that helps our species and humankind move forward. So I was born an entrepreneur. I loved stirring things up. When I was a kid, I grew up in New York. I used to go into the city and buy laser pointers from Chinatown and bring them back into the suburbs and sell them to my friends. And it always, for me, I would put on a music festival in my backyard just to bring my friends together and always just try to create more content, more mixing of people. For me, it was always sort of tied in with this idea of engagement and community building and registering people to vote and helping to really create an energized system. And then also following your passion. So for me, I loved festivals. I loved watching these mass gatherings and celebrations. So finding a way to follow your passion and also make money doing it in a way that was positive. So for me, when these shoes came out, I started selling them at festivals, and it helped me to continue to tour and see music. When I graduated from college, I took a dive straight into Wall Street and worked in the financial industry, which was really, really interesting. I never felt at home there, but it was a really important experience for me to understand why being your own boss is so different. So I left that and I joined the Obama campaign right when that was getting started. And it really felt this undercurrent of our whole society really looking to change. And the millennial generation, of which, looking out at you guys, I see so many of you are, and the way that we digital natives fundamentally think differently. And how this Obama campaign at the time was just a mechanism to sort of wake people up around this idea of hope, right? This idea of participation. So for me, though, it was very much a regimented system, and I wanted to work in my own boss, as my own boss. So I started an organization called Music for Democracy as a mechanism of taking all of this participation around music and helping to connect that to the world of politics. And that led me out to San Francisco as I was putting on concerts. And I showed up in San Francisco and saw this really unique environment in which there was all this entrepreneurship in Silicon Valley, and then there was this sort of very radical artistic culture. And I learned about this thing called Burning Man. And so many of the entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, especially the younger ones, end up coming to Burning Man as an experience. A lot of times it's to have a great time and meet amazing people, but often it's around sort of, why are we doing what we're doing? What is that inspiration? What is that vision of that really important thing that comes from inside that we want to create in the world? What is that? What is that really important dream that we want to manifest into this huge zeitgeist called the internet? And so many ideas have come out of those situations, and Burning Man is an incubator for that. In many ways, it functions that way. So I started my first tech company right after Burning Man, and for me, as somebody who had used a lot of clipboards and helped to use paper, I wanted to take the whole idea of using paper as a method of political organizing or asking people questions and turning cell phones into a platform for essentially digital clipboards. So we created a company, we had our idea, we had our vision, we were all excited about it. We didn't really know what we were doing, but we raised money and we built a beta product and we put it out into the world. And we listened to what our customers wanted and what people wanted to see in that platform. But it was never just around this idea of customer development alone. It was always around this bigger vision of what we wanted to see in the world and that change. And I can tell you that when you're talking to investors and when you're talking to the kinds of people as you're recruiting them to build your companies, for me, what I've found is it's that bigger vision that is the fire. Yes, it's important to always have, the metrics and the goals that you want to achieve. But if you don't have that big vision, then it's not going to inspire you, and it's not going to inspire anyone else if it doesn't inspire you. So I started traveling around the world and looking and finding these amazing examples of people who were doing both entrepreneurship and who were also really, really cool people who had these big visions of what they wanted to see. And I ended up meeting a company in Israel just randomly when I was hanging out with some people. And they had a prototype of a product. I saw it and I was like, wow, that is really, really cool. It was sort of like a 3D world, sort of connecting social networks into a virtual world. And ended up, just because I knew some people, at TechCrunch and had a lot of friends who were in the tech industry, connecting the dots just through making a social connection. And we ended up a week later with these guys. They said, what is Burning Man? And at Burning Man, they met a venture capitalist who was a friend of mine. A week and a half later, we had raised a Series A and competed at TechCrunch Disrupt and actually won this thing, which was a crazy feeling because you go from being an entrepreneur and being all by yourself or with your small team, maybe in a garage, and then all of a sudden, you have hundreds of thousands or millions of eyeballs looking at you and millions of dollars in the bank. And watching your own net worth on paper go up. But has anything really changed? Was there really a difference between you who had $10,000 to your name and you who maybe had a couple million in paper? And for me, I found actually that there wasn't. And I found that that world and chasing that goal, chasing that dream, chasing that exit was for me not in harmony with who I am. And I started to feel like I was at a casino and I was looking at a roulette table. And each one of these pieces of equity were a chip. And so I decided to change what I was doing and really follow my passion personally. And that's when I took a deeper dive into Burning Man. And the history of this thing is really interesting because it started almost by accident, in the sense that it started in San Francisco with a man who just built this wooden man on the beach and set it on fire. And what that was it was just essentially creating a space where people came, and the idea wasn't around making money or around networking in the way we see. It was more around coming together and having a shared context for self-expression and art. And that grew and grew and grew until it actually moved into the middle of the Nevada desert. And now we see today, Burning Man has grown into a city of over 65,000 people. And here, as you can see, there's two cities side by side of relatively the same population. One is Cheyenne, Wyoming, and one is Black Rock City, what we call Burning Man. So as an entrepreneur, we have the ability to set the conditions of the platforms that we're trying to create. And if we engage our users as participants rather than just spectators that we're, they're testing their data because we want to really exploit them more as a commodity, then we end up in a place maybe that looks a little bit more on one side of the equation. Whereas if we can experiment with new ways of really engaging interactively, participatorily with our users, we can generate a completely different context as a platform. Now this is just a little video to show you actually from a drone that was flying over Burning Man this last year, what it looks like out there. Really powerful in the sense that the internet is a lot like Burning Man. It's an open context for our creativity to be able to create whatever it is we want to see. The limits don't exist. Or if they do exist, a lot of times they're perceived. Part of what's so beautiful about being an entrepreneur and in this current age, in the 21st century, is that we really get to be artists. And we shouldn't forget that. Because that's where the innovation comes from. It comes from your dreams. And the canvas is infinite. Business models are important too.
I first confronted the
but it's those things are combined together. Now, so this context of Burning Man, it's been growing now around the world, and Lithuania here is actually one of the countries that it's spread in. And you'll see in a little bit, Goku and the whole Lithuania Burn crew have set up a really cool art installation behind here that hopefully everything will work according to plan. So I just want to shift gears for a second and talk a little bit about the philosophical side of what we do. Because again, if making money is the be-all, end-all of what we're trying to achieve as entrepreneurs, then maybe that'll work, but maybe it won't. And it seems like more and more what the trend in the world is that people really want to feel a part of a community. They really want to feel that when they show up and trust your website with all their data and press Facebook Connect, and that what they're getting in exchange for that is something that they feel a participant in, rather than just being sort of taken by that. So this is Burning Man's 10 principles, and this is something that evolved out of the community over a couple decades. And you see things like this idea of radical inclusion, or gifting, or decommodification. But the most important one of these is immediacy, and that is that there's really no substitute for direct experience. And I see you guys out there, you're all in your chairs, and I'm up here, I'm a talking head. How used to this are we? Back and forth, right? You're sitting there, everyone's quiet, I'm here, I'm playing this role. Maybe I jump over here, maybe try to, if you guys want to stand up or shake it out, or you can stay there, whatever you want. But at the end of the day, we're so used to being sort of, in this conventional paradigm around experience, especially on the internet. But one of the beautiful things about this, to me, is that there's no substitute for direct human experience. And a lot of that today is figuring out that balance between the online experience and the offline experience, and making sure that we always remember that those two worlds have a place. So these are starlings. They're these birds that are flying over England. One of the cool things about how they work, what you're looking at is this process called murmuration. And murmuration is essentially spontaneous mutation of a species. And in this case, they're predators or hawks, and they come in. And they actually are able to all, in a non-hierarchical way, bend to fend off predators. Now, in a way, that's kind of where we're at as humanity. We have tremendous global challenges that we're facing, and for the first time ever, we have a central nervous system that connects us all in real time, and that's the internet. And that's the platform that we get to create applications on top of. And they get to everybody. They have the potential to connect to the whole world. So how do we do this? How can we accelerate evolution towards a cooperative global culture? Well, in many ways, technology is doing that. With every new disintermediated system, we're able to free up new economies. We're able to put creativity in a user's hands that might be in Lithuania, it might be in New Zealand, it might be in Zimbabwe. And that individual entrepreneur, that artist, that designer is able to essentially birth something from their collective experience that then could be what powers, the next century of, an individual industry or an application. Well, we're starting to see this transform more than just consumer culture, right? The Arab Spring started, Occupy, we're seeing the ability of, almost in like a murmuration, social movements to be able to really spring up in real time. And it's not that it's all coming from one centralized place. These things are able to kind of happen in a more spontaneous way. And once again, that infrastructure that connects us is the internet. It's been Twitter, or it's been Facebook, or it's been whatever the next social application that'll probably come out of someone in this room looks like. So if you think about that for a second, it's in our hands. It's in our hands what we do as those entrepreneurs that might birth that next infrastructure that could power the world. And that's a big responsibility. That is a big responsibility, because it's not just about the money. We've been seeing sort of the public sectors, the governments around the world, all trying to sort of cope in this 21st century world that's changing so quickly, right? And how do we support innovation? How can we reform our, government or our politics in a way that will be more in line with what we know people out there on the internet are creating? It's a different system. The public sector right now, all around the world, is lagging far behind what entrepreneurs are doing in terms of creating new examples, new models for how people and humans can govern resources and share. And so the question then becomes, well, how does that change? And Buckminster Fuller was a futurist, and he has a really cool quote. Essentially, he says that the best way to create change in the world is to invent a new system and make that new system more relevant than the old system. Make it obsolete. Maybe is what's happening right now, you could say. And a lot of these systems are created in such a way that have tremendous impact all around the world, almost transnational. Corporations that are, founded like a startup could be in somebody's garage, and now are absolutely huge global entities, publicly traded. And so if you have this intention when you're starting your startup, and you really want to do it for a social reason, and that's really important to you, think about the different ways that you can make that into your actual bylaws of your company or your operating agreement. Because what happens is companies like Google or like Facebook that were founded by amazing people, a lot of whom share a lot of the values that we all do, and that it ultimately, as these companies get big and users start using them, just like anything else, like a government, it loses the ability to necessarily control once the cat's out of the bag. So it makes us really think as entrepreneurs, not just about our responsibility in terms of, to our stakeholders, to our investors, but also thinking about what would happen if this company really blew up, and are we ready to hold strong to our morals and our philosophical principles if that happens. Because, once again, it's not just technology that's going to change the world. Those hard technologies are exponentially accelerating. We're seeing this movement all around the world of entrepreneurship. There's more capital being invested in new projects all around the world. This idea of Silicon Valley is no longer just a physical location. It is everywhere. And it's happening, and it's so beautiful because all around the world, different cultures excel in different ways. And that's part of what's so interesting about watching this entrepreneurship movement really go global. But there's a really other important part of this that I think is easy to forget. And that's, as much technology as we develop, if we don't have the cultural technologies to implement those hard technologies, then we're not changing the world at all. We're just re-tinkering with how things look. But we have such an opportunity right now to experiment with developing cultural technologies and hard technologies together. Because trust is so important right now, and it probably will be becoming more and more and more important. We live at a very, very interesting time, as we know, where the ability of government agencies to eavesdrop on your privacy, or of companies that were created with a certain intention to lose their integrity of their data, it's very, very easy for that to happen. And so, if we really want society to move in this direction, if we want to capitalize on this opportunity to move from me to we, to have a greater ideal of what sharing is, as we're seeing, then it's really important as entrepreneurs that we think through what that vision of what we want to create is and how to protect that, so that the philosophy that guides and drives that is uncompromisable by greed and power. So here are just some of the amazing things that can happen, that already are happening as we become entrepreneurs and develop these products that essentially create these new networks that allow new types of sharing and new types of economy and new types of friendships and new types of art to spread. And it is quite an exciting time to be alive, and it's quite an exciting time to be an entrepreneur. And like I said before, our canvas is infinite. New software programming languages are coming around. Who knows what the internet's going to look like? We could move from a text-based internet to a more image, visual, 3D. I mean, we're just at the beginning of looking at how social networks are evolving. What sharing a cat photo now could become, voting or taking your tax dollars and allocating them differently. Whatever it is that your vision is, as a creative person, as a citizen of the world, as an entrepreneur, the canvas is so wide open for us to create. So figure out what inspires you. Start in your heart. Conjure up your power and change the world. Thank you.